by for the Brewery Underground podcast.
In Nashville's heart will rise, craft and brews will meet the skies. Stephen Scott, they lead the way, Brewery Underground night and day. Raise your glass, let's ignite, in this city we unite. Raise your glass, let's ignite, in this city we unite.
Hey, well, look at this. We're back. The Foamy Underground. That's right. Stephen Scott, Mitch and Rich, and we got a cast of characters on this podcast episode today. And Scott, you are the one that kind of were the ringleader on this. So let's talk about who we got on the podcast today.
Okay, and they've got so many titles. Let's just go right into it because I got a bunch written down here. We've got Chris Chamberlain and we've got Braden Gall. Both are voices and writers of the podcast Mashville. Among other things, Chris, you are a food, drink, and travel writer for the Nashville scene, probably among other things. Braden, you are the owner of 440 Sports Media, host of ESPN Sports. Again, probably other things as well. Welcome.
Good to be here.
Thanks,
Good
guys.
to be here.
Yeah, thanks,
Yeah.
guys. Yeah, we very much appreciate it, and it's like 3 podcasts today,
Yeah.
in one.
I was just looking at the windows, and this looks like if the Brady Bunch was like a pre-Ozempic commercial.
Yeah. Yes.
Speak
That's
for
what craft
yourself,
beer
Chris.
does to you.
Speak for yourself, Chris. I'm midway through Ozempic, okay?
That's right. Shoot
We just need
yourself.
2 more. We can invite 2
Yeah.
more while we're at this.
Yeah, we need like Alice the housekeeper,
We'll let Rich be Alice. Yeah.
I've been called worse. It's
That-
okay.
Guys, did I get most of your titles right?
Yeah, absolutely.
did,
That totally
yeah.
works for me.
I
Okay.
literally have a business card that's covered on the back of it with places I write for, used to write for, places that I've outlived, editors that I've outlived. So I've been doing this for about 17 years, and to be a freelancer, you really got to scrape together a living. I know Braden can talk about that hustle too. I mean, I have a notebook in my pocket that says "Get shit done" on the cover. So I mean, that's that's what you got to do. So
That's it, whatever works. First
Love
off,
it.
how do you guys know each other?
Chris, you want to go first?
Well, I've been a longtime listener, loyal fan, first time podcaster with Braden. But I knew Braden from, back what he did on 102.5 when he used to have the morning show there, and heard him contribute to a lot of things. And when I heard that he was going, what are we calling it? Digital terrestrial podcastral radio. Yeah. That
Internet radio?
Yeah.
Internet radio.
I started subscribing to his podcast one at a time, and now he's in my ear like 85% of my free time because I'm listening to one of his podcasts. So I've always really admired that he's more than just a sports guy, that, he really cares about the culture of Nashville, the politics of Nashville, the sociology of Nashville. So I've always just enjoyed hearing his opinions, and he likes to eat and drink like I do. So that's good.
So I probably knew Chris 2 different ways, but didn't know that I knew Chris. Sort of like I had been reading his stuff, obviously, for I don't know I literally have no idea how long, and then was interacting with him on Twitter. But Chris is one of those lurkers on social media where he doesn't really have the name, doesn't exactly match exactly what you think you don't notice, and so we were going back and forth about stuff about the Preds and a variety of things. And then I think it was during the pandemic maybe, or when the company launched, something like that, where we started chatting a little bit more, and I kind of realized, I was like, wait a second, this guy over here is the one that I've been talking with over here on the radio about this stuff, but I've been like reading his stuff over here, and that was a few years ago, and have kind of just been friends ever since. And he was the only guy for the job when I kind of pitched this idea to somebody, and there was nobody else I wanted to do it with. So
Nice.
And my handle goes back to, literally it was my AOL handle. So, so
It stands
that's
for
why it hasn't
America
changed.
Online for
Yeah.
everybody under the age of
Oh,
How's the
35
AOL
years
going
old.
these days for you, Chris?
You know, I got a cabin up in Swanee, and I wrote my first 2 books using CDs that came monthly from AOL and Net Zero. So
there you go.
dial-up
Net zero.
dial-up's been a big part of my life for a long time.
There you go.
Hence why the editors have died.
Yeah, I've outlived them.
I don't think you're going to find anybody on this call that doesn't know what AOL is. I think we probably all had it back in the day. We're all of that age.
Back in the
Yes.
day. Hey, before we continue on, what are we all drinking tonight since it is a beer podcast?
Yeah, let's let
Ooh,
our
good
guests start
question.
first. Chris, what have you got?
I am drinking a Yazoo Daddy-O out of a defunct Mayday mug or a pint
Oh,
glass. So
yeah.
here's to Ozzy. Yeah.
Here's to
Ozzy,
Ozzy.
Yeah, cheers.
ironically enough, we talked with Ozzy last week in a couple weeks ago in Murfreesboro about his current happenings, what's going on right now, like his caricature drawings and things like that. So always a good time hanging out with Ozzy. Even more fun when you get him down on the microphones to talk for a little bit because you get the real Ozzy.
I never realized that he never quit his day job.
Nope. Always,
I mean,
always at his full-time gig. Yeah.
Yeah,
Which
he
is
was talking
nuts.
about that night at Middle Ground with us, and I was like, wow, all the years he owned Mayday, he was still working in healthcare and a day job, and it's like the amount of hours that guy put in, and you could tell now he's just sort of like, sitting back and seeing how it all is with everybody else.
and it kind of indicates something about HCA's drug testing policy.
No Maydays on that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
maybe he got grandfathered in somewhere along the way.
Love that guy.
He was great. We've actually not even released those episodes yet. It's that new, so maybe look forward to those soon. Braden, what have you got?
I've got, I believe this is an Italian Pils from Barrique, I believe, in my ML Rose pint glass, of course, so always
Okay.
on brand. I'm really into Barrique right now, them and Fela Force as well. Those are like the two that I'm kind of drinking a lot of, even in a January, relatively speaking. So I'm really into what they're doing right now, and hopefully they'll still exist in a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I know they've got beer, but for how long? We'll see.
Yeah. They got land that's very valuable. That's the
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, there's an ML Rose you mentioned it. ML Rose just opened up in Murfreesboro where I am too. So I remember going back to, even 7, 8, 9 years ago, my buddy and I, when he was just getting into craft beer, we would go meet up at Craft Brewed, downtown in Nashville. We would have a couple of flights there. And then the only other option that we thought of, or the only thing we knew, go down the street to ML Rose, have a good burger, have a couple of beers, and then continue like the craft beer tour around Nashville. And then at that point, hadn't been able to get back there since. And then 2 months ago, ML Rose opened up in Murfreesboro. So
Yeah.
it's become a regular hangout spot here too.
I was so depressed when
checks in the mail, Rich.
Yeah.
Checks in the mail.
I
Yeah,
was
man.
so depressed when Craft Brew closed because Chip had promised me, "Oh, don't worry, it's going to be a lot like the same." And I went in the next day, like, "Oh, this is a vape shop." Okay.
The neon lights.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I drove by right afterwards, I was like, nope, not going in there ever again.
Turned into the blinding sun of LEDs at the front.
It is bad.
Is anybody watching Pluribus?
Yep.
I
No,
just finished it.
I have
So-
not
Isn't it
seen
good,
that.
Mitch? Is it good?
Yeah, I think it's great.
I'm
I've
just
heard
saying
it-
that
I've
the-
heard good things.
The premise of Pluribus is that everybody catches a virus that makes them all very happy because it spreads so fast. That's how I feel about ML Rose.
Yeah.
You know?
yeah, that's a great analogy.
Braden doesn't know how to take that.
Well,
Yeah.
so like
What is-
let's turn this from a beer show into an AI
Right.
show. I thought it's an entire, like, I'm 3 episodes in, so we're not, my wife
Me
and I
too.
just started it, so we're like really excited to like go watch another episode tonight actually, but I feel like it's exclusively about AI, unless I'm wrong about that. Like that's how it feels to me, is it's like all these folks just all have the same brain. So I recommend it. Go watch it. It's great.
Yeah. Sounds good.
It's a slow burn. Just don't expect it to be aggressive takes at all. It stacks
Nice.
upon itself. It's good.
Yeah,
Mm.
it's good. I really like it. So
All right, so what are the pros
Okay.
drinking?
Mitch, what you got?
Well, I'm going to disappoint everyone here tonight. I'm kind of out of craft beer, and I've got this
Nice.
several-month-old Natty Light Natter Day with this great yellow color. It's less
amber than my glasses.
Hopefully it's still fresh.
I don't know if that matters.
I don't think it matters.
Yeah.
At some point, he won't notice.
It's going to look like that in 8 hours, too.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's the
At
goal.
2
I
a.m. in the
guess.
morning, right?
I just created more Natty Light.
He's getting his water intake in for the day.
It's a renewable resource.
This is my punishment for not stocking back on local craft beer.
I've got to go back and find it, Mitch, but I know we both have one. We've got one, bought a 3D printed bottle opener. I can't remember who we got it from, but it's the Natter Days. It's bright pink and yellow, and it's got the teeth on the other side to help with the wax bottles, the wax tops, but it is a killer. It says Natter Days on one side. It's like bright pink and bright yellow. It's obnoxious looking, and I love it.
It's a wax
great.
cutter and bottle opener.
Yeah.
Nice.
I got to find it somewhere. I'm drinking, so I got a couple. I'm actually, Scott, I'm on my full pour now.
All right. You're good for a good 10 or 15 minutes.
That's right. Maybe 15 minutes. I've got a couple of Goose Islands in the back. I might bust out here in a few if things go well. But so tonight, I just finished up when we started recording. I just got back from Chicago last week, so I decided to drive it instead of fly it. Because, it's 8 hours, but it's a fun ride, like 65. There's breweries along the way. And hit Indianapolis on the way back. Hit this really cool place called Metazoa Brewing. Very, very dog friendly, like pet forward. Like a lot of their brews are named after dogs, and I'm a big dog guy. 2 ladies run the shop. Super cool place. They have 15 or 20 different beers on the board, and they'll let you order all 15 of them at once if you want on a flight. And so it was just a fun time. So supported them there. I was drinking a hoppy wheat from them when we first started here. And I've moved on to, sad to say, it's not Nashville. I'm not drinking anything Nashville right now. Atrium Brewing. So probably another one of my favorite breweries along a little bit north of Tennessee here, going up to Chicago. But I'm drinking the Karaoke Bender. It's their newest New England IPA. So super good, really juicy. Kind of got a little bit of like a milkshake taste to it, which is not normally what I go for. But in this case, it just kind of smooths things out. And it's not too creamy, but it's very smooth. So I'm really enjoying it.
Nice. Looks good, too.
In my crazy gnome glass.
For the win. Yeah,
that's right.
Well, I've got, which is currently my favorite brewery in Nashville, and my favorite beer in Nashville right now is the original from Stokehouse, which is Braden, is right over there by you in East Nashville, the old Crazy Gnome location. And this is my favorite, not just Nashville beer, this is my favorite beer right now. It is unbelievably good. Clean, Chris. It's as good as you get as a lager. I mean, my God. And if you guys haven't been to Stokehouse yet, make sure you get over there. Food and beer.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're legit. And that smoked burger he does is just crazy. Yeah.
Yes, I really wish I could have got the bologna.
Yeah. The bologna. And he released the sausage today, too.
I saw their Instagram post. That looked killer.
Yeah.
Everything from them has been so far. Yeah.
Scott, I know you love that lager because every time you're there, you're checking in 3 or 4 of them, just boom, 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 boom.
And I don't do that with beers. I'm jumping from one to another almost every single time, but I'm just like, everything they've got on the board is fantastic. Like, just give me another. Just give me another. Just give me another. Like, you can't beat it.
And that coat closet in the tap room, that's their dry storage. It's amazing what they do out of that small space. So
goodness.
Very efficient, man, and they are doing wonderful things. And we'll get back to this later, but on the Nashville scene, I'm just saying the ribs and the barbecue better be on that readers poll next year from Stokehouse.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Well, East Nashville wins the scene most of the time because that's where all our readers are.
Yeah.
That's true.
Oh, you're pandering. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, it's because it's free.
Yeah.
Steve, what have you got?
Man, I am also drinking some Barrique tonight. This is their English bitter Notting Hill Gate. So, got to support Barrique, Hopefully, we can support them for a long time. I'm hoping for them.
Yeah. I love that ESB of theirs. Very good.
And cheers, everybody.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you guys for being here and making the time. So the reason you guys kind of jumped on our radar, and Steve, I know you know who Braden is prior to this, but you guys did a podcast, and it was a 7-part podcast ultimately called Mashville, an improbable history of Nashville craft beer, which I think we all thought was pretty amazing. I loved it.
Thank
You
you.
guys were both the narrators and the writers on that.
I will say that Braden really liked that name when I pitched it to him, and now I hear that the poor guy has to say Mashville with an M. Mashville. If you
Mashville.
try and Google Nashville, you're not going to find.
I think what's cool is you guys really listening to it went through the history and you interviewed so many different people. But let's talk a little bit about what inspired you both to come together
Yeah.
to really put together this podcast. What was behind the idea and the concept of it?
So I've worked with ML Rose for a number of years as a client on a bunch of shows. Just kind of believe in their vision. They believe in small business. We believe in small business, and so it was kind of a really good fit. And then they came to me. I would say, I mean, this had to be 2 years ago. They were just they just kind of, we were having a regular kind of marketing kind of meeting, and they were just saying, hey, like, we'd love to do something around beer. Like, maybe we can do an episode of one of your shows around beer. And I didn't even have to like wait till the next meeting. I was like, I know what I want to do on this. I'd like to tell the story of Nashville, but like through the lens of craft beer. And, you know, it never really was supposed to be about, you know, barley and hops and ingredients and flavors and stuff like that. It was always supposed to be about the city and like its relationship with beer and the relationship with people and the neighborhoods and everything. And they bought it like 100% right out of the gate. I was like, I don't know how long this is going to take. I'll put a budget together for you. I know who I want to talk to be the co-writer and the voice on it. And had to build the team from, you know, had to get an editor and an audio engineer and put graphic design to it and everything. So once I got the budget together, they were like, they didn't even hesitate. They just were like, yeah, let's do it. And I think they probably expected a product much sooner than we put it out. It took us way longer. A lot of that's on me. But that was kind of the impetus for it. It was like I kind of knew I wanted to tell the story, and I didn't really know how to do it or you know, what's the right delivery mechanism. When they asked for that, I said, whoa, like instead of a 45-minute conversation about, you know, a brewery or a couple beers or whatever, like let's do the whole thing. And 30 hours of hours of interview and a year of work, and God, I don't know how many times we sat down to edit. And finally we got it out. It probably was 16, 18 months maybe total from time of that meeting to the time it actually, you know, got published.
Yeah, we thought it was going to be, you know, like a tailgate beer long, but it turned out to be like a barrique process, you know, to get it done. You know, took a little bit longer to get ripe. So,
Well,
But you
it
guys
was
set
super
out though
polished,
because
so.
you interviewed a lot of brewery owners and a lot of brewers, but you also went into, I mean, I heard former Mayor Bill Parcell on there. You already had you had Butch Spiridon, who was the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce in Nashville for a long time. I mean, was it easy when I mean, you probably had those relationships. Was it easy to get a lot of these guys to talk about this, or how did that all pan out for you?
Well, you know this, and when you are like, I started in radio and in sports as a producer, and if you are going to be a great producer, I don't know what our level of cussing is on the show, but
as much as you want.
like to be a great producer, like you cannot give a shit about what other people think of you. You just have to be willing to bother people. And so I think that's probably deep in my brain somewhere as a reporter all the time. I'm sure Chris doesn't care about this either. Like, it's just part of the job to cold call people. Hey, this is so-and-so. You've never heard of me, but I'm doing this project. Would you be willing to chat and I can introduce myself? And like that, you know, that's how I used to like try to get Bobby Bowden on the show in like 2005 when I first started working or whatever. Like, I remember, I think I called Bobby Bowden's house one time because I was so naive to like what I was doing. I was like, no, I'll just call his house. Oh, hey, Mrs. Bowden, like, what's going on? And I think that's the background, is just as long as you're willing to like kind of beat the pavement and really go after people and not take no. Like, there's a few brewers and a few breweries that didn't get featured, some of which just never got back to me. And that's okay. Can't use your tape if you're not going to get back to us.
Yeah.
And one or two of them, you know, it was multiple voicemails, multiple text messages, multiple emails. I probably sent a DM. You know, any possible way, a Raven, a smoke signal. I tried to get in touch with people, and if they, you know, you get to 6 or 7 no's, like, where you're ignored. You got to move on, and you got to still do the story. So
Yep.
a lot of it's just you just kind of grind it out when it, and mostly everybody was really great about wanting to tell their story for sure.
Well, and I had the advantage that I had written that beer book back in 2014. This beer book back in 2014, available at your Kroger checkout. But that was back when all these breweries were just starting out, and they were very anxious to tell their stories. And when I wrote that book, all right, first of all, I screwed up. I thought that the deadline for the first draft was in June, so I started working on it in May. That was when the book was due. So I had to do the whole book in a month. And I took all my own, I had to take my own pictures too. So, but these guys, it was right at the peak of round 2 of expansion, the Black Abbeys, the Jackalopes, the Tennessee Brew Works, the Calf Killers. So they were very just new in the business, great folks, fun to talk to. And because I knew that, this was going to be a book that was about the history of beer, you don't want to write about the individual beers because they're not going to be there by the time the book comes out or in 5 years. So I wanted to tell the stories of the people and the founding mythology of each brewery. So they were more than happy to talk about that because they were all so new. It was what they were going through at that moment. So I've had long-time relationships and known these stories. So I knew what to tell Braden to ask them. And that helped a lot because I don't think people do that anymore. I think they just want to know, what's new, what's shiny, where are you moving to? Did you buy a new tank? And I wanted to know, where the hell did this Martin Luther thing come from, Carl?
Yeah.
That's the interesting story to me,
Yes.
Yeah. Carl's a great character too. And
Evil.
Chris, you brought up a good point. I know, and Scott and Steve kind of follow the same format, that we all do. We all kind of have the same love of beer and local community and getting what's inside the heads of like the people in the industry out. But it wasn't always like that originally. Back when like Mitch and I first started recording with the Foamy Heads, we were simply just, we gathered around an old Microsoft like Surface tablet and put on the camera and the microphone and sat on the couch, and we talked about what beers we were drinking and we rated the beers and all that. But and if I go back, I did this the other day, I go back and look at and try to listen to some of those old episodes, those beers aren't around anymore. Like it's not, it's point in time, right? The craft beer industry, as we have found over time, is evolving constantly, and there's always new beers coming out, and people aren't interested in, what was last week. They're interested in what's coming up now. So you brought up a good point about, people are interested in the history and what's inside the people's minds of the industry. Right. And that's what I can say that as a customer of you guys, that's what I'm interested in. That's what makes me interested in Mashville is the history and going through and the bite-sized pieces, right? I mean, they're 20-minute episodes. I don't have to sit down and dedicate an hour long to something. I can throw it on when I'm heading to the store, when I've got my hands full with kids, so it's easily digestible format. So cheers to you guys. And I really appreciate not only the historical look on things in Nashville, but also the bite-sized format that you guys present.
I intentionally wrote this. I intentionally wrote this book to be each chapter to be like 3 trips to the bathroom long, so you could just leave it on the toilet tank and learn about a brewery, every couple days.
You're either a fast reader or a long something else.
Both are true.
Well, like the thing that strikes me from both of y'all's comments, Chris included, is like one of the things I probably didn't expect. I probably wanted to do this, but didn't know what to expect about it. Was sort of the personalities of like the original group. I think there's lots of great personalities currently, new breweries. Like I know a lot of them. They're great people. They're interesting. But I thought the ones that really built the whole thing are the ones that are in Chris's book. And so getting to know the personalities, one of the things that I maybe I'm the only one who finds interesting, but I thought and I think we did this on purpose. I wanted the story of the names of the breweries to be in there for each of those original ones. Yazoo, Jackalope, Tennessee Brew Works, Black Abbey. Let's use those, and then Blackstone to some degree. But again, didn't get to Blackstone. They didn't. I think
Kent's a tough get, but a great guy.
He is. But like I thought each one's story about how they came up with the name, like really gave me an insight into like who they were, how they thought, how they viewed things. Like if you hear Linus tell the story about how Yazoo came up with its name, it's like the most Linus Hall thing of all time. Like it's just like even how the logo came about. Like, oh, we were just sleeping one night. My wife just drew it and went back to bed, and then we found our logo. It's like the most Linus Hall thing I've ever heard. You know, Bailey, her story around Jackalope and her kind of affinity for like these mythical creatures, like it's just a real insight into kind of her playful, mischievous kind of side that's really interesting. I just thought that was like one of those random, weird, silly things that, you know, you're never going to, I don't know. I hope that we're like one of the only places where you'd find that kind of stuff. And I thought that those are the kind of things that happened that I was just like, man, this is way cooler than I expected. Because those personalities all coming together when they did is really like the core of the story.
We had, and I know Mitch and Rich had, I think you guys probably even long before we had him on, one of our first guests was Carl Meyer. And, you know, I had craft beer for years, but, you know, it wasn't like I went around before I started doing a podcast and really knew a lot of the brewery owners. And we got Carl on, and within like the first 5 minutes, my mouth is just dropping because of just how dynamic of a guy he is and the personality. And one of the first things he started talking about, what you guys talked about on your first podcast episode about this, was what got him started was going to like Bosco's. And I moved here in 1998 in Nashville, and I remember Bosco's because I worked down, you know, downtown off of Music Row. And it's like, I mean, Braden, I think you kind of said that. It's like there were only a few places that you could go. And it's like, you know, shout out to Bosco's. I mean, Bosco's and Blackstone always has a you know, a soft spot in my heart. We were just there a couple days ago because I'm pretty sure they were probably the first brewery that I ever went to. So, you know, and that it's so cool to hear about that kind of history back now.
Yeah, Bosco's was Bosco's was a huge part of like my young adulthood in Nashville before family and kids. And, you know, Sam's Next Door, like before it burnt down, RIP, was like our Saturday hang. Like it was such an important part of my life. And I, you know, to hear them all like validate that, like felt really like interesting. Like, oh, this is as important to you guys as it was to all of us too. That means that must mean something. And that's sort of how it ended up as the opening scene of the whole series.
Well, like, you know, Anchor Steam and Henry Weinhardt and Sierra Nevada, that was like the gateway craft beer for a lot of us. I went to college on the West Coast, even though I grew up here in Nashville. But in Nashville, the gateway to, oh my gosh, there could be a beer that's not a vanilla cream ale from Bohannon, you know, that there's a real craft beer out of Nashville. That all happened at Blackstone for me. I mean, that was where you learn that, oh, in these tiny tanks, you can make something really beautiful and you can win awards for St. Charles Porter.
Yep. St. Charles Porter was my very first, believe it or not, my very first dark beer. Like at the time, I was drinking St. Charles Porter, and I was like, this thing is heavy. There is no way that. And then you look at. I'm trying to remember the ABV on a St. Charles Porter. It's easy drinking, but when you're coming from, you know, over to the craft beer industry, and like your definition of craft beer is like Blue Moon, Shock Top, and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And then you go, well, let's try something local, and you try something like Blackstone. And it's like, oh, I'll have that Blackstone Porter, you know, St. Charles Porter. And I took one sip of it. I loved it. I drank that thing religiously forever. It was such a good beer.
And Scott, like I said, Scott and I went there. Yeah, and Scott and I went there on Sunday with some friends, and it was kind of cool. It's like 3:00 in the afternoon, and that place is just jam packed. And it's like after all these years, you know, it's not always easy to jam pack a brewery. No. You know, sometimes it's hard to get people in. But
after
they've always done it well.
Does Newcastle count as a dark beer? I'm honestly curious. Like, is that?
It's a brown, right?
It's a brown ale.
I don't feel like it's true to what you're saying.
You can see through it though, can't you?
Right. Yeah. I wouldn't say it's dark, but it is like amber.
Yeah. I'm just like that's the beer that I think of when I think of like the first time I ever tried something like in that direction. You know, it's probably at a college bar in Knoxville in like 2003, drinking a Newcastle, and I'm holding a Newcastle, thinking, I know something that none of these other people know. Like nobody around me understands what we're doing here.
The Big Bomber Newcastle was a go-to for me for so many casual things, like a concert. They'd just sell the Bomber, Newcastle Bomber. It was the go-to here. That and Rogue Ale.
Oh, yeah. All right, a little Carl Meyer trivia for you guys. Have you ever seen him DJ?
Yes.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
I have.
Because to your listening audience, if you get a chance to go see him and Matty Hargrove and their alter egos, DJ Dad's Been Drinking, it is a very entertaining evening. Yeah.
Yes, they have a good time. Everybody else has a good time too.
Yeah, the four of us did a collab podcast at the Common John, last beer fest on Earth, and he was doing it. He was there then, so yeah.
You mentioned how dynamic a talker he is. I got an hour and 21 minutes with Carl Meyer for this project.
Yeah.
And the story about where he got the name, to Chris's point about like the whole, black now I'm going to butcher what was the original name supposed to be? He changed it because it's in this thinking now I'm drawing a blank. It's all too many beers. That was like a 9-minute story. Like a 9 or a 10-minute story.
Yeah, and John called back and said, "Try and say that after you've had a beer." Yeah, that was
like not even a break. Like I didn't ask a follow up. It was like a 9-minute story about how the name came about, and I think we got it. I think we got it down to like 36 seconds or something.
Good job.
Hard. It had to be hard to do though. He probably gave you a lot of gold in there.
It's so hard to edit Carl Meyer.
Yeah.
Because there's so much good stuff, but none of it connects.
Braden, before we hit record, you were telling us that Chris was your third choice in narrating the thing. Who were the first two?
Why'd you go that direction, man?
They both recommended me though, so that's good.
Yeah, it was.
He didn't say that.
Vern Lundquist and Dolly Parton were the first two, and they both said no.
That's fair. That's fair.
No, he wrote how do you not do the food and drink writer who wrote the book on beer, whose voice sounds so actually natural, unlike my voice, which sounds like I'm been working for 20 years as a broadcaster. Everybody likes his voice way better, so we got to have somebody to soften me up a little bit.
Yeah, well, I will admit the truth that it took us so long to do this podcast that you can hear me go through 4 different seasonal allergies. So.
Well, now I just go back and listen.
Yeah. Oh, that's the ragweed episode. Yeah, okay. All right.
It's just called texture.
Yeah, there you go.
But that's a good question. So, Chris, I mean, I know you've done a lot of writings. I mean, like your history of Music City Brewing, like the book. I mean, you can get it on Amazon. It's on Kindle right now. I know you're also part of the Mashville podcast as well. But you've done some not only just like resi and things like that, but have you done TV before too?
Yeah, I've been on Food Network a couple times. I've been a judge in Best in Chow, which was a Canadian Food Network company that came down to choose the best barbecue in Nashville. Best in Chow.
Wow.
I still got the T-shirt. I've judged at the Jack Daniel's World Championships for 14 years in a row now, so that's a lot of good barbecue.
Yeah.
So,
I think my question around that is there a difference? I'm gonna leave it broad because I'm kind of anticipating what direction you're going to go in, but like, is there a difference between how you're supposed to not necessarily judge food, but like enjoy the food when you're doing something on television versus like if you're doing something to write up in like an article, or if you're doing something for like a book that you know that you're going to be publishing later and you're not directly on the spot right now? Like, is there a mentality difference between the two?
well, I mean, you just described 3 very different things in that, if you're judging, say, at a barbecue contest, you've got 6 of the greatest chicken thighs you've ever tasted in front of you at the same time, and you have 6 minutes to judge them all. So that it's got to be, you don't judge one against the other. You judge each one against the platonic ideal of what you think it should be. But you can't go back and go, well, I liked that one better than that one. You literally have to judge things one at a time against themselves and only themselves. But if I'm writing something for a book, I've got all the time in the world to compare it and think about it and rank it if people really need ranks. I think ranking food and restaurants against each other is kind of a bad thing to try. Anybody that's still in business in the restaurant business right now deserves a best of award to me. I mean, just because it's such a hard business to get into. But people ask for that too. TV, they give you a little time to think about it, but they don't really care as much about your opinion as the outcome. I mean, I knew going into Best in Chow that Kerry Bringle was going to win because he's peg leg porker. He's awesome, and he's going to be great on TV. And the other two were what was the one? Hog Heaven, which was great, but they didn't have a personality behind it. There was nobody that came out and charmed the judges. And then it was the Wild Horse, which was like judging inside a mammoth cave. So, I could see the big industrial smoker out there. So, there's going to be elements of theater and elements of truth in all of it. But, I just try and do the best job I can. And
Absolutely.
And
Hog Heaven was a perfect place to eat when I was also going to like original Yazoo. Like that was a Friday afternoon. Like walk across the park, go to Hog Heaven, and then head over to the happy hour at Yazoo.
Yeah, I mean any place that just has a screen door.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah. Yes.
Braden, funny story. One of my buddies used to work at a location, and we used to work across the street from this guy who used to homebrew. And every week he would get an empty keg. He'd go right across the street and knock on the back door. Guy named Linus would open up the door. They would talk for a little bit, and he would exchange his empty keg for a full keg. Before Yazoo was even Yazoo, he had it on tap at his marketing company, and they would just drink Yazoo beer all the time. So
this is a
be able
marathon,
to have
right?
that relationship, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I knew a couple guys that had like ad agencies and marketing in there that would literally get Yazoo on tap. They were wondering if they could run it through the walls.
Yep.
There's probably holes actually in the walls already. Like
I'd be all right with it.
Yeah.
The rats would eat the beer lines, though. So.
It's funny you mentioned it because Steve and I were just over at Corsair this weekend, which was the previous original Yazoo location. It looks much different now, obviously, but it's that same spot.
Yeah, I mean, that's where Karen did some amazing beers back in the day, but, they were never going to be commercially super popular, but God, to have like somebody doing an old, how do you pronounce it? A Groot? Or, she would do these Egyptian beers and Nordic beers and, these weird ferments. And luckily the guys at Corsair were just weird enough on their own with what they were distilling. They're like, go for it. Make us this beer that's, out of barley corn. Yeah.
I do remember a few of those.
Because a small beer project kind of thing they had when you'd go in there. Right? Yep.
I think Yazoo at that time, at that place with Linus and how he came to brewing beer, I really do think that's like sort of the embodiment of like old Nashville. If people ask like, hey, what is old Nashville? What does that mean to you? What does that look like? How do you define it? It's pretty hard. You kind of just go, oh, you had to be there, right? Well, but like I think, and Chris and I talk about this in the show, like parking your car on a road that doesn't have a parking spot. Hopefully the windows are there when you come back. You're walking into a courtyard with a hole in the roof and a tree growing out of the middle of it, and the beers were $3 or $4, and you had a local Nashville band playing in the courtyard that night, and like it just was like it was rough around the edges. It wasn't like polished. It wasn't supposed to be. It was gritty, but it was like creative and kind of passionate, and like there was a kindness to it too. Like everyone was just like there to enjoy beer and have a good time and listen to some music. I just feel like that's like kind of the embodiment of if somebody's like, what's old Nashville? I'm like, that's kind of what I think of now. Yeah. And I think doing the project is actually what kind of like restarted all my thinking about all the places I used to go and the things I used to do. And I really think that's what old Nashville really is, was this gritty entrepreneur, creative community that just supported each other, made really killer beer, and was just trying to have fun doing it. And like, this is some guy that just like learned how to do it off the back of a magazine. Like it's a great story.
And there was a lot of bootstrapping back then too. I mean, literally you could go in and volunteer to help Linus bottle on a Sunday, and you'd go home with 2 cases. That's how he bottled his beers, because he didn't have a staff until his insurance found out about it. And they're like, no, you cannot have randos coming in and using your bottling machine. But
insurance companies, way to screw up a good thing.
That was one thing that I really loved working with Braden on this, because I knew the nerdy historical side of it, and I knew the personality. I write profiles, but to contextualize it and put it into the sociological timeline of Nashville. That's what Braden brought to this, that I just was fascinated the whole way through. And on every step, I'm like, oh, now I get where you're going, and trying to find a way to make it a personal story, but also a Nashville story, and weave in the personalities of all these great brewers. I thought it ended up as a really fascinating timeline of what made us, for good or for worse, It City, what, has turned into Shit City since then. But, it was hot there right up until after the flood. So,
And I gotta, she's not here, but I gotta
Yeah.
shout out our editor and audio engineer, Ambrielle Crutchfield. Is like, when we started it, were 2 episodes in, and it was real dense. It probably listened like a weird old nonfiction like book or something. Like, it just wasn't what it needed to be. And I think she kind of heard all of that stuff. She heard some of the personal side of it. She heard, some of the things that we're talking about. Like, she was great to pull out of us and out of me. So I want to give her a lot of credit. She's a brilliant storyboarder and audio engineer, and was the editor and producer on the whole thing. So Ambrielle Crutchfield, shout out.
Yep. And she wasn't a beer nerd. She wanted to listen to it. She wanted to listen to it from the perspective of someone going into it like, why should I be interested about this? And that really changed how we had to think about it, because we were already interested in it going in. So,
That's a good perspective, though. I mean, like, you want to talk about trying to target a different audience that may not be somebody that generally listens to your type of stuff. What would it take to get somebody that's not in that industry to enjoy and listen and enjoy your show? So, yeah.
thank God it's not on video. Yeah. We lose them all. Yeah.
It's great storytelling.
I
though.
really like the aspect of what you guys talked about, and you probably had to edit it down. But talk about up until like the mid '90s or early '90s, the laws in Tennessee that were so different that impacted anyone that wanted to be a brewer and really wanted to own a brewery in Nashville.
Yeah, that's, in this fractured political climate that we're in now, even then there were definitely issues in where one side wouldn't work with the other side in legislation. And the fact that our ex-governor used to be a beer distributor and owned a trucking company that shipped beer from West Tennessee, he wasn't looking for small craft beer to become big. He owned the biggest Budweiser distributor west of the Tennessee River. Did a lot of good things for the state, but we were going to be regressive at that point. So the fact that, because it was a good idea for business, a good idea for consumers, that the legislature was willing to undo 100 years of bad legislation to create competition and create artisans. I can't think of many times where I could have said, wow, the state legislature really came up with something creative and good for the little people.
And it's like, I think there's also a couple different like benchmarks, really. Right, like there's the '90s benchmark where brew pubs were allowed. I think it was early 1992, I think, which is Bosco's, and then there's the home brewing ban that was lifted. One of the later states in the country, but one of the early states in the South to do it. But really, it's like, you think of a Republican supermajority, which is kind of taking over at that time, like right around the mid 2010s. That's kind of when the transition starts. You think of them as very pro small business, and that was not the case at all in the state. They were long track record, and we probably could have put, I don't know, Chris, we probably could have done a whole other section in the first episode about a lot of those laws that kind of put us in this situation. We kind of treetopped them a little bit in the first episode. We wanted people to think about beer and like enjoy it, come out of the gate a little bit more easy drinking, as it were. And the dense one is much later in episode 5, when it's very heavy into kind of the modern regulations that a lot of folks had to go and like really work against to try to solve. Again, Linus Hall. But we probably could have done a whole nother like 4 or 5 minutes chunk in the first episode that was all about why that was. The big beer distributor keeping everybody out of the state on purpose. Like that was another big chunk we could have done. It just, got to ease into the first episode.
And, Nashville had been such a strong Bud Miller Coors town. Well, not even Coors. Hell, we didn't get Coors until I was, out of college, I guess, because it wasn't across the Mississippi by then yet. So we were a Bud Miller town. And every bartender, every bar manager, every restaurant owner, every bar owner went to Talladega and Bama games and Tennessee games on Budweiser tickets. So, having to overcome that, Think about the guys at Calf Killer, the Sergio brothers. The only places they had to sell their beer were at like boat docks and honky tonks that had a Bud tap, a Miller tap, and a Coors tap. And then these two hippies go in and go, I've got something I'm calling it Black Widow Badass Ale. And it's the craziest thing you've ever tasted. We made it with, beef jerky and smoked rutabagas, or something. But all we want is just give us one of your taps. And at this boat dock.
Right.
In Sparta. And they succeeded. I love those guys. And they said, I'm going to bring you something different next time. So just give us that tap, and who knows what it'll be next time I bring it. And that's, that's at the very micro scale, how you change a climate.
Yeah. Hearing Bailey talk about the when they finally got Bear Walker on and kicked off Miller Lite, like, to hear her tell the story, I mean, she's like, that was one of the best nights of my life. We couldn't believe it. And when you're 27 years old, going to these places, like, just drinking a beer, like, you don't think through the economics of how that beer got on that tap, or who made it, or how did it get here, and who convinced who of this being a thing. And it really does take this crazy group of people. You need Austin and ML Rose to be willing to take risks, to cater to a different audience that wants a different product. You got to have the person who's got the talent to make the product, and then the wherewithal and the sheer determination to get it to places. And you're just like, I'm 28 years old. I'm just going to go have a good beer. Okay. Like, this is awesome. Cool. And I never considered, like, how much work and effort and adversity it took to just get that pint glass in front of me.
Let me turn a question back to you guys. So before Homestyle, can you think of a regional breakout beer that came out of Nashville? And why don't you think it happened? Because I still wrestle with that question.
Not a breakout beer. One that I had locally was Dos Paris. You guys mentioned that.
Dos Paris, yeah.
Not a breakout beer, but I do know what you're talking about, because Homestyle, like, if I had to define a beer that represented Nashville for a long time, it would be Homestyle. I was out of town before and be in a liquor store, and guys, I could hear people asking for Homestyle, like in a whole nother state, like asking for it years ago. So, but Dos Paris probably for me was one, not breakout, but locally for me.
What was anything bigger between 07, 05, and 2012 than Dos Paris?
Maybe
Ballpark?
Gerst.
Gerst was pretty big.
Because Gerst was up in Indiana too.
Gotcha. Yeah, my brother moved to Atlanta, and he was just always wanting Dos Paros. So it's like he spread the word with a few friends there. So to me, it'd be Dos Paros as well. People just kind of knew Yazoo.
But I don't think that was ever even a top 3 volume for Linus. I mean,
Probably
compared
not.
to Pale Ale and Gerst.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, but I've always been curious about that, because you've got a bunch of Goose Island in your fridge behind you. That's nowhere near here. How did that make it here? And nothing from Nashville ever made it to Michigan.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I probably one of the most religious followed beer events and festivals that I try to get to every year is Dark Lord Day at Three Floyds in Munster, Indiana. And I remember my first year I was there, people were asking for, now this was, years ago, people were asking for Homestyle. Like, I literally traded a Goose Island Bourbon County Brand Style Proprietors blend for a 16-ounce can of Homestyle, and like, they were elated for it. So, to be able to,
it wasn't even on their original menu. Like, wasn't even,
No, and we can go back and forth about, the taste of Homestyle today versus, the ingredients of now versus later. But, like, yeah, for sure, for me, it would have been home.
Can I ask a follow-up, which is maybe not the biggest breakout, but is there one like that? Like, Dos Paros is the beer that I think of when I think of my transition from, because I started with like big cheap beer in college, and then you kind of work your way into, like, I don't know what you call, like, Red Stripe or Newcastle, or Sweetwater 420 is probably more of an actual craft beer, but like, those are like, that was like
Training
how
wheel beers.
Yeah, but like, not regular light mass produced stuff, but also, fairly large stuff. Like, again, Red Stripe and Newcastle are the two that I remember thinking.
Landshark.
Yeah, exactly. And
Ooh,
but
Landshark.
when I Dos Paros is what I transitioned into, like, oh my God, there's people here doing something really interesting. Dos Paros defines, like, because obviously it would have been Fat Tire would have been a big one that's similar to it's a craft beer like Sweetwater 420, but it's not local. All right, that I want to be here. What was the thing that made you go, oh, I want Nashville beer?
Ooh,
Without saying home style, it's tough.
yeah. Well,
I
I
probably for me
enjoyed
probably was
Yazoo
Gerst.
for a long time.
I
Yeah.
think Gerst.
Our advantage is we have fresh and variety. That's the beauty of having a lot of small breweries. Nobody is gonna. You don't have to worry too much about old beer in the beer coolers, and you can always go find something new. You can do flights if you want to, and discover something. Like that was what was cool about Southern Grist. You never expected anything to be there in a month. You better like it
Right.
now, because it may not be there when you go back next time.
Like my hazy revolution personally is tied directly to Southern Grist. Like I began transitioning into that area because of Southern Grist for sure.
And it's a
That was
three
gonna
barrels. It was a 3-barrel system. I mean, they couldn't. Barely bigger than a homebrew system. So
Well, and again, I go back to Blackstone. It's such a regular lineup, and for me, those are the ones I've always remembered and go back to, and just went back there over the weekend. I'm like, there's the Kolsch. I'm gonna have that Kolsch. So brings back a lot of memories.
I think Bosco's was a big part of that too, because they had a brand line, a line of beers that was in Memphis too. So they had a steady brand, but they always made room for experimentation. They always had a real, they had a real ale, something that they had to use the beer machine on, and so you could be the old fool and knock the bung out of the half cask. I think that developed a lot of people. And Braden, tell the story about all the people that were at Bosco's at the same time.
I mean, basically all of them. I mean, Carl, I think, and he tells a story in the opening scene of the very first episode about how he's rattling off all these different founders, whether it's Zons or Yazoo or Jackalope or you name it. They were all there. Kent is there. They're all there working together. And what's crazy is I'm like, yeah, I don't, maybe not in 2001 was I going to Bosco's, but 05, 06, 07, I was going to Bosco's. So maybe I was a little later, but I know when he describes walking into that place and this is what it felt like, and this is what it smelled like, and this is what it sounded like. I remember it, and I can go back there. So it was really crazy to hear that number. I mean, 8, 10, 12 people, and then of course Carl breaks off and creates his own group in Antioch. Chris can tell you the name of the name of the brewing
Let's just
group.
say it was. You can figure out the acronym, but it was the Antioch Sudsuckers.
Yeah.
So.
Antioch Sudsucker, and he was doing it
Carl.
in perfect Carl fashion. He was doing it because he knew he didn't want to offend anybody that was still at the other homebrewing club. He was like, oh, we got to make fun of ourselves if we're going to break away and do our own thing. And
the other reason he didn't want to be at Bosco's is because they allowed smoking.
Right. Palate.
I mean,
Oh yeah.
This is why we call this
his palate.
That's why we call this an improbable history. Because the fact that all those people were in the room at the same time, the fact that Bailey and Christian and Carl all came from high-end professional jobs and moved to town and decided there's not enough good beer here. I'm going to quit my high-end professional job and make beer for a living. It's just,
Man.
we wouldn't have the scene we have if you were trying to bet on how it would have happened. It wouldn't have happened this way.
Well, so
Right.
Christian, one of my favorite things about Christian and Tennessee Brew Works, Christian Spears, is I don't know if you guys like Michael Lewis. I'm a big fan. I like his work. I read all of his books. But his very first book, because he worked on Wall Street, his very first book is called Liar's Poker, and it's a total kind of inside the walls of the bond trade as it was invented in the 80s at Lehman Brothers and Solomon Brothers and all these places. There's all kinds of crazy characters in this book, right? And I'm sitting there interviewing Christian, and he tells me the story about he goes to North Carolina, he graduates, he goes to Wall Street and goes and works because he's this genius math guy, and he's working on a desk in Wall Street. And he's like, yeah, I was working with, have you heard of this character who's nicknamed this in Michael Lewis's book? And I'm like, yeah, I just finished it a month ago. He's like, yeah, that was my boss. And I'm like, and then I'm thinking about Lewis's book, which is these guys were making an insane amount of money in 3 years. The skyrocketing profits for these companies and for these traders is just insane to understand. And he just was like, yeah, at 35, I'm going to leave it all behind. And then he goes all around the world. He's like in Costa Rica, and he's in Mexico, and he's in South America, and he's like, yeah, I'm in a leprosy camp in India, working at a nonprofit, when I decided I needed to brew beer for a living in Tennessee. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? And it's just I don't know. You talk about Improbable. That story is wild to me.
Whoa. I wish thunder or lightning would hit me like that and give me the
Yeah, right.
inspiration I need.
Nothing like it.
But I mean, he clearly had a lot of. I mean, again, you work on Wall Street in the 80s and 90s. You probably have, to Chris's point, like he left a lot behind to just leave, just to walk away and to do all this stuff and then go find his own path, and could have stayed on Wall Street and been a, who knows how much money you could make.
Yeah, and owning a brewery and brewing beer is not an easy job. Nobody gets in it for the money
margins
anyway.
are not fat.
No.
Yeah.
But we all know that the beer community, all these guys, I mean, most of them get along really well. And Chris, can you talk about that from your perspective of like you've written in the food industry for years. Do you see that in the restaurant industry as much as you've seen in the craft beer industry of like the competitiveness, but yet these guys, they're all getting along. Does that happen in that industry too?
Definitely pre-pandemic. I will say that, there's a lot of cities where people consider it a zero-sum game where, for one restaurant to succeed, another one has to fail. And it's never been that way here, but we were a city that was experiencing unprecedented growth from 2000 to 2020. So there was room for new folks, but luckily, in most cases, it was independents. It was people that had all worked at the Capitol Grill. It was people that had all worked in each other's restaurants. And even the people that came from out of town, I love hearing them say, yeah, it's kind of similar to the story that that they talk about at Tennessee Brew Works, where they showed up where Bailey and Steve showed up with beer for him and growlers when they were all hot and working. When somebody hears that a restaurant is in the last week before they open, that is go time. That is training time. That's when your friends and family, you're trying to get staff in, and suddenly there'll be a knock on the door, and it'll be Pat Martin, and he'll have big trays of barbecue. Like, here you go. Or it'll be somebody knocking on the door from Edley's. Like, how many people you got opening today? All right, we're going to deliver 100 tacos to you. And they want each other to do well. Now, we ran into a problem come pandemic time where if you were an independent restaurant looking to open, you decided not to open, which is a smart decision. But if you were building a big hotel, you kept building that hotel because there's no stopping that. And you know that those rooms need to be filled at the end of the pandemic. Well, there's going to have to be a big restaurant on the ground floor of that hotel. So that hotel opened, that restaurant opened. And then one did next door, and downtown becomes bigger and more of the money goes into those and less into the independents. So now I would say there are plenty of local independent restaurants that would not mind seeing a few other restaurants die in a fire, but they're still rooting for each other, but that's the kind of competition. The competition is it's us versus them, and that's kind of a shame. It shouldn't be that way. Them used to be like the guys at Farmhouse opening up downtown. Trey grew up in town, and worked at the Capitol Grill, and he opened a restaurant. Deb Paquette opens Etch downtown. That's all right. Now we're making it. We're expanding into a new neighborhood with locals. Everybody I talk to, I just try and encourage that. Any restaurant that you love, if you're thinking about it and you haven't been there in a while, go, because nothing's promised.
They're competitive in 26. Like beer and restaurants together now, margins are going to be smaller, costs are way up. People aren't going out as much. People aren't drinking as much. Like, it's a really important thing that if you like these places and you care about them, that in 26, and all these breweries now serve food. Mm-hmm. They're all competing for your casual kind of hangout time. 26 is going to be a tough year. Episode 7 talks a lot about the challenges that the industry is facing, and I think the restaurant industry is right alongside it. And so, couldn't echo Chris's sentiments more. Like, if you really like a place and you go there as much as you can afford to in 26, for sure.
And we had, between like when Yazoo opened until 2018, I can't think of a brewery that closed involuntarily. I mean, it was unbelievable the run we were on, that everybody that wanted to stay in the business stayed in the business. Some of them sold out, like, Little Harpeth sold out and those kind of things, but you don't see that in the restaurant industry. I mean, restaurant industry's got a 50% fail rate over 5 years, and it looked
Oh,
like we were invulnerable in the brewery industry, and now you're seeing that kind of consolidation over the last couple of years. And it started out when you could see that Mill Creek, or not Mill Creek, that Bearded Iris and Scofflaw were trying to get ahead of it.
mhm,
We're going to have to
yeah,
get bigger if we're going to survive this, and they didn't. You know,
yeah. I often wonder about that because it's we've all been drinking. All of us on the show here have been drinking beer for years, even before the pandemic. But the pandemic changed a lot of minds. I mean, like when COVID came in and shut everybody down and it pushed everybody indoors, it forced a lot of the breweries that were out there to get very unique and very smart with how they were delivering beer. I mean, like for me, it's going to sound really weird, but for me, some of the best times in like the new brew industry was when everybody was in lockdown because breweries were coming out with stuff every other week and you were driving up and they were running it out to your car. Like it almost felt kind of old school the way things were being done. It was like you couldn't go inside the doors and sit down and have a beer with somebody, but they would bring something out to you, and Bearded Iris and Southern Grist, it was something new every other weekend. And that was Bearded Iris's mindset, kind of from the beginning. It was a new IPA every other week, and not a lot of breweries were doing that, if any, at the time in Nashville. And then all of a sudden, money became cheap. So all of a sudden you saw all these new breweries open up post pandemic, and all of a sudden people were borrowing money at 0% interest and all that kind of stuff, and PPP loans. And now in 25, 26, and probably in 25, like you're seeing this consolidation of breweries. Like, and sometimes you're looking at some of these breweries and you're scratching your head, like, how in the world are they still expanding? It's just like,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a couple of breweries in everybody's mind. You just look at it and be like, they got 8 locations in Nashville and other cities around. Like, how are they still doing this?
they
And
sell
these other
pizza.
small breweries are dying. Yeah, they sell pizza. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's my mind often goes to those places like how does how when people's backs were up against the wall, when people were shut down, they were trying to figure out like what are we going to do during the pandemic, what are we going to do to get beer into people's hands. Everybody had their own business model. It was almost like the Wild West. So I, for one, appreciated the mentality of like Bearded Iris, Southern Grist, where I could order online, go pick it up in the gravel parking lot. They would bring it out to you. Restaurants got creative. I felt like Nuketown in Call of Duty. Like in my neighborhood, we had food trucks going up to the park in my neighborhood. You'd walk up and get food, and people would be standing outside saying hi to each other. But the pandemic was just a unique time for the craft beer industry in general. There was no question here. It was just kind of like my thoughts on it since you were bringing up like pre-pandemic. It was just kind
Well,
of a weird time.
I I wanted to tell the story of the pandemic's influence on craft beer, but you can't really do that without sort of talking about the entire picture of young people and drinking habits and non-alcoholic beer and all these other things. Like consolidation had already begun. Nashville was already starting to contract slightly. It was going to be oversaturated in 2019 when it hit its peak with 40 breweries. And I think all these things would have happened over time. But I think every issue that was facing craft beer, like the pandemic just poured rocket fuel on all of them.
Accelerated
And
it.
so, like, I think we were going to see a slow decline of young people drinking. But the pandemic, like, shot it up, right? Or you're going to see people more isolated at home, but new technology in the pandemic shot it up. I think, people moving to Nashville, the cost of living, the cost of opening a brewery, all that stuff was going to slowly increase no matter what. Well, the pandemic shot it up. So it's almost like we took all the hits at one time, and hopefully the ones that have survived are the ones that kind of know how to do this now and will survive in the future. But I don't think anybody knows. That was something that every one of them echoed. I asked every person, what are the challenges? How do you approach them? And they all kind of had a different answer. But all of them were about sort of evolution, evolving, changing your offerings, creating an experience for people to come to the brewery, whether it's food. It's kind of similar to what you had to do in the pandemic. You have to think of it now as like, how do I differentiate myself? And they're all coming up with cool ideas. They're all doing it kind of differently, which is hopefully fun to watch play out.
The difference is that when everybody's hunkering down, like when everybody is literally being forced to hunker down in the pandemic, you feel like you can do that. All right, we're going to go small and we're going to be smart. We're going to come up with ideas. But when just your business contracts and you realize you have to hunker down, but you see other people running, it's really hard to like, okay, well, they just got huge. They just got bought. They just bought someone else, or they brought in new tanks. If Stokehouse were to lay off one person, that would be 25% of their sales for their whole workforce. When you're already hunkered, then you're talking
Yeah.
about people. You're talking about friends. It's not head count like it is for a large brewery.
And do you think that you really think 2019 that was when things were contracting?
No, so we peaked in 2019 with breweries at about 40. I asked so many different people to try to give me like when was the exact number and exact year, and like I talked to people in Metro government, I talked to people on the beer board, I talked to people on the craft beer association. Like I could not get an answer, and I got like two different people to say like I think we got just over 40 in 2019, and the pandemic was the originator of the contraction, but it was not going to sustain growth at 2019 15 to 19 pace, because the city just is eventually that was going to be too oversaturated. You see when people's eyes glaze over when they go to the beer store and they see 400 different options and they're like, I don't even know where these are from. And it was just there was too much, like it grew too fast, and it was going to happen naturally no matter what. Again, when you have not enough demand and oversaturation of product, eventually you're going to have contraction and consolidation. The pandemic just made it like took it from back burner and put it on the front burner and said, all right, let's go. And so I think and this is, again, Linus did it something different. He went to Madison to get out of the rush of all of this. Bailey sold in a different way with Jackalope. She sold and stayed on as the CEO. Bearded Iris sold basically all of its production after outsourcing it to a different place first, trying that. Then they sell it to Wiseacre, but they're going to stay on and kind of run the brand in the city. Southern Grist sells completely. They're just out altogether, those guys. You look at Anthony at East Nashville Beer Works, and he's like, there's beer deserts everywhere around Nashville. Let's, instead of building another East Nashville Beer Works, let's build like something crazy. And he goes out there and builds like one of the coolest buildings in Middle Tennessee that's luckily like one exit down from where my parents live, so it's a very easy excuse to not go to my parents' house.
And he builds a mobile truck so he can go to those beer deserts too.
Right.
Whoa,
and then he comes up with all kinds of, he does all the charity stuff with Fridays by the River, and constantly being creative in his tap room. The point is, like, Christian is tied exclusively to like really high end food. Everyone's kind of tried to do something different, but they all are facing the same things, and all those problems were coming. The pandemic just put them in front of our face like right away, like that. And now we're down to like 25. So we're talking 40% of the breweries have closed since 2019 in Nashville, and that's not a small number.
That's a big percent. Dang. Yeah.
And then you got others that are expanding, like you said. I mean, East Nashville Beer Works is doubling down. Like, hey, we're going all in. And I think it's going to pay off for them. Like you said, that area out there, they've taken over that area in 109. Like that's going to be, they're the cornerstone of that area, and are going to be for a long time.
Yeah, a lot of apartments there too, which is
they're building more stuff around it. So he's like, yeah, we're sitting pretty right here.
I've always said that a brewery is a great job for like 4 or 5 people. Where you could sell everything you can make in your own tap room, and you're not beholden to anybody. I mean, maybe you want a distributor so you can get into a couple of, but Yazoo, Linus didn't even want to sell in grocery stores because he didn't want to be competition. He didn't want to have his own tap room. He wanted just to sell to other bars and, just sell to customers that liked him. But as soon as you decide, like, well, maybe we'll go to Chattanooga. Well, you will be a Chattanooga distributor's best friend for a month while they introduce you into the market. And then you're going to have to hire somebody in Chattanooga to sell your beer. So you're now paying another $1 a pint for every beer that you sell. And you're not going to get an extra $1 just because you're a Nashville beer in Chattanooga. And guess what? Somebody in Chattanooga is going to come to Nashville now because of that. So the ones that are the most focused, once you get beyond your tap room and beyond your market, you are working for the distributor at that point. And you're going to be depending on somebody that's riding around in their car to sell your beer, not the person you're talking to across the taproom bar. And that's how you make a lifelong fan. And you four, those are the kind of people that's how you learn about the beers. You learn about them by going to the places and finding favorites and then bringing them home. And so I think you're going to have to get small to hang in there unless you're going to consolidate.
Can I ask you guys? Hey, you ask trivia, Chris. I'm going to ask trivia here. So I have the book of lists here from the Nashville Business Journal, which has
The book of lists.
the top the top breweries in Nashville ranked by total barrels. Now, I don't think every single brewery reports on this, so I want to put in some caveat here because I don't see Smith and Lentz on here. I don't see a few others. But isn't Nano Brewery 3,000 barrels and below, Chris? Is that correct? Ballpark?
There's Nano and then there's Micro because Harding House was different from a Nano Brewery, right?
Because that was the main piece of legislation that put breweries into our neighborhoods was Anthony Davis, when he was on the council, removing the industrial zoning mandate for breweries. And that allowed you to put breweries in commercial areas, which then turns into like sort of these residential areas. And I don't think I even... like this hit me. Maybe it's not 3,000, but let's go with 3,000 for the sake of the conversation. You're saying get small, Chris. How many breweries in Nashville brewed more than 2,500 barrels last year? 2,500 barrels. That's not very many, I don't feel like.
I'm going to say 2. That's my guess.
Okay. A few more.
3?
I'm gonna say 5 or 6. I feel like it's got to be more
3.
than 2.
6 is the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Yazoo, Bearded Iris, the Nations Brewing Company, which is, the combo.
Litman, yep.
Tennessee Brewworks, Jackalope, Black Abbey, and that's it. All the ones that kind of were the OGs.
Tailgate doesn't report. They're in there, so there's 7.
And Tailgate doesn't report. So, but again, like we're talking about 5 or 6 places that actually are doing any kind of volume at all and are not small. So maybe that's a good thing. I don't know.
I thought Mitch's answer was going to be 6, 7. That was what was
all right, been fun talking to y'all. All right, where's the out button? Where's the leave? Right?
I didn't bring it up this time.
I'm with Chris. I'm out.
I guess not. It drives Rich crazy. Rich got is he a 5-year-old?
Yeah, he just turned 6 recently, and he's all up in that craze right now.
Well, here's the good news for you. The 9-year-old, I ran it into the ground. I said it so much that the 9-year-old, like 3 months ago, was like, "Dad, it's so stupid. Stop doing that." And so she stopped saying it.
That's so 2025, Dad.
Yeah, exactly. The 7-year-old still kind of chuckles at it, but I've been working hard for about 5 to 8 months, I'll say.
Yeah.
To get rid of this thing that's in my house, and the oldest one already hates it. So
I bet there's a lot of like NFL offensive guards whose jerseys are selling now.
Oh, man. Yeah. Just for that.
I think they've moved on to 41. She walks around going 41. I'm like, what? Stop.
Oh, safeties. Yeah.
One of the cool things I liked about the podcast you did is that the timeline you told was parallel for the most part to my craft beer journey. Like literally the time wise. Like I came to Nashville 2004. What I was drinking before that was like Miller Genuine Draft, and somewhere along the way I found Blue Moon, but everything you were talking about and that because it was growing here, it grew my craft beer experience and journey at the same exact time. It was completely parallel. So everything you were talking about, I was kind of reliving it again. And I thought that was really cool. I don't know if any of you guys, if it was the same for you guys or you started earlier or later.
I feel the same way, Scott. I mean, you and I have talked about this. I mean, moved here in 98. Braden, I heard you on your podcast talking about, you were always trying to find different places for craft beer. And at the time, when I worked downtown, it was like, okay, you had Bosco's, you had Blackstone, you could go down to the Flying Saucer and get some, different beers on tap. They may not have been craft beer. And maybe like I think it was called the beer cellar or something.
Beer cellar, yeah.
Beer cellar, yeah.
Underneath
Beer
Hooters,
cellar.
yeah.
Yeah. Till it got blown up.
Yeah. And those are the places that I remembered.
Oh, yeah.
When I first moved here.
Now, we'll say the beer cellar did introduce a lot of people to a lot of beers, but they were not the freshest kegs. I will tell you that. When the keg got here from Munich to, via Memphis to Nashville,
Well, it did, they call it beer cellar for a reason, right, Chris? You felt like you went in there and you were almost in a dungeon.
And I don't want to get too deep into like why alcohol is important to civilization. I will recommend the book, The Doctor, the Evolutionary Scientist, that was featured in episode 7. Edward Slingerland wrote the book titled Drunk. I think it's about 4 years old or something like that. And I read it, and it's just brainwormed into my head. And when we were putting this together, like, to your point of your journey, and then you guys, even just hearing you guys talking about the old, like, I can picture what a conversation would be like with one of my friends that was at Yazoo with me. Like, remember that? You remember that Delta Saints show in like 2007, and they played this album that just come out, like that. Those memories are so critical to people, like living life and like building a community. And alcohol is at the center. There is no actual redeeming quality to your body for alcohol. There's just none. The medical community is correct about that. But the side effects of alcohol, the social effects of alcohol, there's a reason we as a species picked beer and wine 10,000 years ago to be our narcotic of choice, because beer can't really kill you. Your body's going to naturally not have any room left. Wine's the same. Liquor's a different science altogether. I'm not talking about liquor, but beer and wine, in particular beer, like, it is how we form civilization. And I think it's something that we're missing. Going back to Rich, you talking about the pandemic and people being isolated, like young people not drinking. Like, I know this sounds like I'm on a soapbox, like preaching here, but people need to go have moderate amount of beer with each other, put their phones down and stare at each other's faces for a little while. Like, it's not, and you'll have those memories that you guys are talking about, which is like, man, you remember that time we were at this place, and remember we were doing this, or we went to this concert, the music fest we went to here, or the beer fest we went to there. And like, that's the stuff that like makes us who we are. And I really believe in it at my core. So I know that sounds naive or cliche, but like, this is how I feel.
I think you're right on the money, man. I think you're right on the money on it. Yep.
If I'm planning on going to a city, for whatever reason, the first thing I do is what breweries are there. I don't care if I've been or not. It's all around the breweries. If I take a vacation, where are we going to drink? Where are the breweries around? How close are they? It's 100 times out of 100 for me.
I'll tell you the one guy not to be, and this is another Carl Meyer story. Don't be the guy that goes in and just orders a flight of everything they make. He talked about the 15 beer flight, just so you can check them off on Tapped. You know, and and Carl was sitting there on his iPad watching his numbers, and there was one guy that kept, like, he'd have another one, like, don't like hazy IPAs, don't like this one either, 1 star. You know, and just going through the whole thing, and he would put a new one on every 30 seconds, and he called the brewery, he called the tap manager and said, is there a guy sitting at the bar ordering flights, probably wearing a kilt? And the guy said, yeah, there is. He goes, tell him his beers are paid for. It's time to go.
Nice.
Holy shit.
On brand for Carl.
Yes.
And that's been a conversation. That's been a talking point. Like, and all of us have had, you know, brewery founders and head brewers and owners on our shows before, and it ends up coming up every single time. You know, what's your thoughts on Untapped? And it's so funny to hear. It's so funny to hear like the consumer side of things, and like how it's used as almost like a fun challenge. Like, how many beers can you check in and how many you can do this, versus the owner or the brewery. And, you know, some people, they don't even look at it. They're like, I don't care about it. It's not real. I don't care. Other people are like, I don't understand why someone would give you a 4 if they think it's the perfect IPA for them. Like, and it's so disjumbled. It's so disconnected from reality. Like, Untapped should not be the system in which everybody bases their understanding and their ratings on a beer, but it's become that way.
Hey, and by
so
the
funny
way,
to see it
by the way, because it's relevant, I don't know if you guys can see this right now, but look, you probably can't see it. This is,
I cannot
Too
see
bright.
it.
yeah, too bright, but it's my Untapped app, and this is the Barrique, and I'm actually gonna rate the beer that I drank, and I'm not gonna rate it bad because I don't rate bad beers on there. I don't put on there, I hate that beer, I'm not gonna ever drink it again.
And I can't admit that I don't have a 9-year Duolingo streak. So, I mean, we've gamified everything at this point.
There you go.
Yeah.
It is funny. We've talked to brewers, and it's, you know, it's hit or miss. Some guys don't want anything to do with it, and other guys take it as a kind of a learning experience, not to improve their beer so much, but hey, what are they saying? What are consumers saying? What are people saying? You know, you could probably throw out a guy that's given one a 1, you know, and the overall rating is a 4, right? You can just kind of throw that out, but they want to hear what people are saying. So we've heard all of it, but it has changed our rating as consumers 180. And not that we were giving shitty ratings anyway, but now you realize there's somebody on the other side of that thing, or hey, we had somebody on us, rate to style. If you rate something to the style that it is, whether you like that style or not, that's going to give it a fair rating, I think. So it's all over the place. I think we all do a good job when we check things in to make sure that we don't give anybody a shitty rating.
Well, I like how Fate LaForce does it. They'll sell you a small pour. If you want to sample something, let's sample it, but we don't want to do a flight because you're not going to really appreciate that fifth beer in a flight.
You're right.
Yeah.
I agree.
This reminds me of Kayvon telling us a story about Bearded Iris's like initial menu decisions were like, I think he said they had 80 plus beers on their menu in the first year.
What? Oh, wow.
And it was all because they were trying to talk to the people in the tap room and getting like immediate feedback. Like, hey, we brewed this yesterday. We finished it yesterday. Try this. What do you think? And then they would make adjustments off of that. And Homestyle, I don't think was like in that first year. I think they got to Homestyle through the process of like, I don't know, talking to humans who are drinking beer in your tap room, like what a novel idea. But it does remind me of that they started so broad and then are now very focused on like, well, before they sold the very small number of beers. So it's and that's all through trial and error.
On the flip side, talk to him about the beer council, Braden. I mean, that's the other way. I mean, sometimes you do need to drink 120 beers to pick the proper 20.
I volunteer.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah. I'll do it.
No, beer council, Chris, you know more about it than I do, man. ML Rose has this really, really cool evening every year where they would get people together. And yes, before Julie Merrick, who's the kind of the number 2 in charge of ML Rose, before she took over, it was total chaos and anarchy in Bacchanalia. But like just, and you can imagine, right? Like it's a bunch of dudes sitting around in a warehouse drinking as much beer as possible, trying to pick out which tap should be at ML Rose. And a very important process that I assume was way more effective early in the evening. And then Julie took over and turned it into like a very scientific process. Have you ever been to one, Chris?
I have. And it's, everybody wants to be on tap at ML Rose. It's kind of where a lot of us had a lot of our first craft beers. But what they do is, the distributors will ship, here's our 20 beers that we want you to consider. And so you're tasting them. But they've made it down to, they realize that every neighborhood that ML Rose is in doesn't like the same beer. What they're drinking in Brentwood or in Franklin is not the same as what they're drinking in Melrose. So they literally take all these beers and make a list for each restaurant. And that's a tremendous amount of work, but that's also, it's a great job, admittedly, no doubt. But you have to know your customer more than even what Bearded Iris was doing, trying to throw their own beers against the wall. You got to have things that fit within style. You got to have things, okay, and it's more than once a year because they're going to have a winter menu and they're going to have a summer menu, and it's quite an undertaking, and that's the kind of thing that separates them from what like a Flying Saucer was, where you were literally trying to drink 100 beers so you could get a plate on the ceiling.
Yep. I actually didn't know that about ML Rose. So you can go to different neighborhoods and it will have different beer on there. Okay, that's
Absolutely.
really cool to know.
That's
I
cool.
did not know that.
I might actually, if you give me a second, I might actually be able to find. I actually got a list of their top 5 beers at each location. I don't know if I'm supposed to give that out, but
that'd be fun information.
I actually got it. If you give me a second, I could probably dig it up here.
All right.
At the Murfreesboro ML Rose, a lot of local craft breweries.
Yeah.
So like a lot of Murfreesboro craft beers are on their Cedar Glades on there. They've got 2 or 3 different taps.
Middle Ground.
Cedar Glade doesn't discriminate. Middle Ground's on there as well.
They got Common John there.
You're talking to me when at the time I wasn't getting a lot of sleep, Steve. But
Well, that's okay. That's okay. I was trying to help you along there, Rich.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah,
and it's a fine line between trying to pander to the local audience, but also get them beers that are best in style or fit what you think is going to be best for them. And but it's always going to be important. I wish we could have done a whole episode of just the story of the people at Tennessee Brew Works and the people at Black Abbey. Both released their first keg on the same day, and they threw them in the back of vans and rushed to get to ML Rose to deliver the first one. And then that night was a craft beer festival at the Tennessee State Fair. So they had to get those 2 kegs. Those are the 2 places they had to be on the same day, and that
That's
that
great.
changed Nashville beer history right there.
Nice.
And Christian doesn't want to admit it, but Carl beat him.
Yeah.
My first memories of ML Rose was the 8th Avenue location. And I think, as far as I know, every location does it different, but we'd always go on Thursdays because it was 2 for 1, craft, whether it was craft or domestic. And you always got a chip, right? If you're drinking craft, you got the yellow chip. And every Thursday we'd go for that 2 for 1. But I know, like, as they were adding them, it was different for different nights. And I don't know if that's the same way because they got multiple locations now, but the 2 for 1 was on a Wednesday somewhere else. And Rich, I don't know what Murfreesboro is if they've got one, but I love that for that. And we'd always look forward to the new seasonal menu would come out because it would always kind of be different. You're looking for new stuff on there all the time. So it was always exciting going to ML Rose. And still is.
Without them, this project probably doesn't happen. So
Yeah.
shouts to ML Rose.
Yeah, definitely.
Guys, what kind of feedback have you gotten from the podcast since it's come out?
Let's do the one negative comment I've had from one for the entire
One.
thing. Literally no negative comments from anybody. No negative reviews. Everybody in the business thought and this is honestly the bar and I don't know, like the level I would hold myself to. Like if everybody that's in it feels like we told the story accurately and well, then that's sort of like I feel like I did my job. And then it's up to the audience to decide if they like it or not. Like it's out of our hands. I had one person, and I'm just the name and who this person is not important, but it was about that this person worked in beer, and they worked at a distributor that had both craft and large beers, and was kind of like, man, I just didn't like how you guys were explaining big beer and talking about big beer with these controlling all the taps and so and so just kind of like, and it was like this person was perfectly lovely and nice about it, but it was face to face. It was a face to face interaction, and literally it's the only thing. And even then, it was sandwiched with like, really loved it. Hey, really appreciate you did the project, right? Like it was still very kind. But I've had one thing, and I was like, God, we're almost perfect. There's no way you can get everybody to agree on something in 2026.
Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. Look, we listened to it and we saw it drop. I saw it drop somewhere. Didn't have any precursor to it or anything, and saw it drop and go, this is interesting. I think I sent a link to these guys, at least told them about it, and started listening to it. I go, this is good. Like, we're kind of in it. And I was like, you were teaching us shit we didn't know or hadn't heard of, or I didn't know there were 2 prohibitions in Tennessee. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And hopefully people that listen to it will appreciate and understand that there's probably hours and hours and hours of interviews that you did, and you condense these down to about 20 minutes or so. And that takes a lot of time to find, the best sound bites and everything else. It's not an easy process.
No,
Well,
it took over a year.
I'm hoping to subpoena Braden like the Epstein files to release all of them. I want all the tapes out. I want everything out in the public domain.
Release
Been
them
waiting for a while, then.
Release the beer
This
tape.
is no Cam Ward. This is no Cam Ward documentary. The tapes will be released. No, we did. I think I've got 31 hours of interviews. And,
I believe it. Yeah.
And most of that's Carl. No.
Easily.
No.
Easily.
Probably 2 hours of Linus at like 3 different times. Like, just quickly, if anybody here, like, if any of these guys are listening, like, all of them were so gracious with their time. I give them a lot of credit for being super engaging and willing to talk and tell their stories and put up with me busting into their offices and setting up shop and asking them questions. And Bailey was an hour and 15 minutes, and Carl was an hour and 25 minutes, and Linus was 3 separate times. And Christian and Anthony, like, my kids go to school with Anthony Davis, and they're literally in class together. Christian lives down the street from me. And like, I was like, hey man, I need you to talk about consolidation. Can you come over here and record this real fast? And he'd be like, sure, man. And he'd sit down in my house and record with me. So like, they were very, very gracious, lobbyists, had a former mayor. We had city council stuff. We had, just again, the final episode where we've got, drinkers just telling their story. And there's 2 other people I interviewed that told all kinds of stories about their drinking habits and their family and their pandemic experiences. And it just wasn't as compelling as, like, so they don't even exist in the story at all. And so, so many people were willing and gracious with their time. And so thank you to all of you who helped with that, for sure.
Awesome.
I saw an Instagram, somebody posted an Instagram post or reel, and it was it was small snippets, and there were video of several, maybe all of the interviews that you had. Like I saw Kramer on there, and I saw Anthony Davis, and like at different locations and stuff. Will there be a video aspect of that somewhere along the way? Maybe, or I mean, I
those were all. So what's funny is those were all shot much later.
okay.
Those were not part of the original sit downs. The only and I shot like 4 hours of footage this way and realized it just wasn't necessarily sustainable. But I had Linus and Bailey, and I had Carl, and I think Christian, and I had the 4 kind of original interviews, and all 4 of them, every second has been recorded. But it's just there's such massive files, and I didn't know, are we using these for marketing? There was never an idea to write the script for video, because this is one of the lessons that I've learned through this. Like, writing for the ear is so different than writing like a book like Chris, or an article for the website, or even just like a script for a newscast on TV. Like, they're so different. You got to show, not tell, which is a phrase my editor told me a million times. It's now in my head. And I think that's that's what makes it hard, is trying to, you can't write for a video documentary and a podcast series. It's impossible. It wouldn't work. And so it's not like a Preds game where you could simulcast the TV Pete Weber onto the radio and it would be fine because he's Pete Weber. That's not how this would work. So hopefully there'll be like chunks of stuff that comes out that we can kind of put out, and if Chris's subpoena works, and all the files are released, then the video files will be released too. So
Well, and you know what I recommend? What I recommend is, if you want to see these people tell their stories, go to their breweries, buy some beers, sit down and ask Linus to tell a story. Sit down and ask Bailey anything you want. I mean, they're there to meet you. That's why they
Yes.
do this.
hard agree.
The 4 of us, Rich, Steve, and Mitch, and I, we do it anyway. Like, we do the podcast kind of as a subset to us visiting the breweries and drinking the beer and going in there. And it's kind of one thing leads to the other kind of thing. But like, if this were a Saturday night, I'd be out of here and I'd go to the brewery. Like, where we're going, kind of thing. Let's go see them, kind of thing. So we do love to visit them and see them and talk to them. And the podcast is kind of a continuation of that.
Well, I'm just recommending that for your listeners. I know you guys are in the bars. So.
See, I'm gonna look over now and see you guys. I'm like, oh yeah, I see you.
It's where all the facial hair comes from.
There you go.
Right. As we're wrapping up, though, where do you guys like to hang out? Food wise, brewery wise, where do you guys like to frequent?
I do like Fate La Force before a SC game. That's it's just such a fun, quirky place, and they're not obsessed about styles. They make things up, and I think that's fine. If it's delicious, I don't care whether it's true to style. Now, if you're trying to do something true to style, then by God, do it. But if you're not, just make a beer that's fun and interesting, and be a good 20-minute walk from Geodis. That's a place I like to hang out.
Yeah.
Just make sure it tastes good, right?
Right.
Yep.
Man, that's sort of an impossible question to answer shortly, because it's just like all of them. Every restaurant, I try to go to all of them, and the breweries as well. I like MO. This is not a shill here, but MO Rose before SC games with my kids, because we park right there on Craighead, and it's a very easy place to go have a good meal and head over to an SC game. Fate La Force after, when the kids are going home with mom, is a good stop. I love that. If people come to town, like I had some family come to town. My cousins came to town a couple of months ago, and they're just like, where are we going to go? And I was like, I would take them to try to showcase food and beer together. I'll probably go to Smith and Lentz. I can get really good high quality craft beer. I can get an elite pepperoni pizza. They can kind of see it's like right kind of close to downtown. Like that's a place that I recommend to people, because I think it kind of gives everybody everything. If you want to take a family to a chill place, go to Madison and go to Yazoo. We really like that for all of our soccer tournaments that we play in Madison and Gallatin. So we go up to Yazoo either before or after. So again, like Southern Grist has incredible food in the summertime in particular. I love their food. I mean, I keep going. Bearded Iris is great. Like where to stop.
And shout out to Stokehouse in your neighborhood too, because that's like getting invited to a buddy's house to drink homebrew, and he also cooks kick-ass barbecue.
And if the kids need to run around and it's a nice day, the pizza's cheap, but East Nashville Beer Works with the dog, it's so easy for the kids. I was in a huge argument the other day with my buddy about how kid-friendly Nashville is, and they were just like, it's not kid-friendly at all. And I'm like, there's plenty of reasons we could discuss that make it not kid-friendly, but like all the breweries that you can go to, like again, out back of Smith and Lentz, Bearded Iris, like you can take kids to places where there's things for them to do because they've thought about them and they want families to come, and that's Anthony's brand.
Yeah.
Maybe too much, but that's his brand. Is bring your kids, bring your dog, come hang out, and you can have a good beer and a cheap pizza.
He completely solved that issue with the Lebanon location, as in like, hey, the kids can't go upstairs, and he kind of because he was getting complaints. Hey, you guys are too kid friendly. He's like, okay,
that's
well,
right.
we'll find a nice balance here.
That's okay. The kids can go downstairs and they can do anything they want. Bring the dogs. You got everything going on.
Yep.
Just wherever you go to it more if you can. That's the key. I mean, Margot's closing this year. I mean, all kinds of restaurants are closing. So if you like your brewery or you like your restaurant, just go. That's in your neighborhood. Go support it and learn about it. You can't reiterate that enough.
Totally. And you live in a great part of town for a lot of those breweries you just mentioned.
I am lucky. I am very fortunate.
Spent a lot of time over there.
150 yards from the old Southern Grist location. Like, again, that story about putting my kids in the stroller was 100% true. So it's a big
next
part
to
of
the
my
vinyl
life.
tap and
Yeah, where Carl Meyer likes to DJ. In fact.
Yep.
Exactly.
Don't you have a great taco place over that area too? Like the one on the corner there?
Now I will say Alebreje is the best taco in the city, but that's my personal favorite, which is technically just down the street from us. Breakfast Burrito. They just changed their name to Resting Burrito Face, which is like the best best burrito in the city for breakfast burritos. It's unbelievable.
I saw that on the Nashville scene page earlier. I was looking at.
It's so good. It's so good. It used to be called like JMOS. I'd love to know what their marketing meeting was like. Like I want to know, like JMOS. Everybody just called it JMOS, and now it's RBF, which is hilarious. But like Resting Burrito Face.
I love that. That's great.
It's a very, very good breakfast burrito if you're in town. So.
Whoa, Resting Burrito Face. All right.
Yeah. Mitch's wheels are turning.
Yeah,
Always
I pulled him up so I don't forget.
Because he's got up on his page like right above his camera.
Across the street is across the street is the best burger in the city. The best burger in the city. Dream Burger is the best burger I've had in this city for sure.
Really? Okay, I haven't been over there.
I think we had that, Mitch. Weren't they right down the road from? Was it Vinyl Tap, or did they have their food truck right? At
They're
Vinyl Tap?
in the parking lot. Yep.
Yeah,
in the parking lot. Yeah,
they were awesome, and they had the spot easily.
Yeah,
well, guys. Anything more for Chris and Braden? I'll let them go. I think Braden had a show he wanted to go watch.
There's a lot more, but we're at we're definitely at an hour and 40. So
yeah.
We'll
we
do
need
this
to just
again,
do
guys.
this again. Yeah,
this is longer than our entire podcast.
Here's my request. I would love to do it again. Here's my request. I don't know if we could do it, but I'd love to do it again. But if we could record it in person at a table with some beers, that'd be really
fun.
cool.
That'd be awesome.
Drinks are on Chris.
For sure.
100%.
Let's figure out where and when.
Yeah, absolutely. We would love it. We've done it many times. We're happy to do it many more times.
Absolutely.
Would love to.
Let's do it.
All
Guys,
right,
thanks
guys.
for making the time. I know you're busy, guys. Thank you very much for
Old
joining
Patriot
us.
it is.
Raising an empty glass to you guys.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers to you guys.
Cheers. Appreciate you.
See you all soon.
Bye-bye.